Welcome back to Central Valley Talk, to our show Business. We talk about business, real estate, the economy, things going on in our community. We're here to celebrate what's good about Fresno and the entire valley. Well, a friend of ours, George Starbuck, is a guy who loves to celebrate Fresno too, and he had an idea to look at some things going on in our community, and he came up with a unique way to come up with solutions. George, welcome.
Why, thank you very much.
And I want to say it this way. A couple months ago, you put on a youth-empowered affordable housing summit. That was back in April, I think.
Yeah, and at that time, when you said, tell me about it, I responded, I said, I just don't want to tell you about it. I want to come back and share the results.
Right. He was here back in maybe March or April saying what he's going to do, and you did it.
Yeah. So here's what happened for... to bring you up to speed, the youth of Fresno are really concerned, actually the youth of our nation are really concerned about their ability to be able to purchase a home and to raise families in, because it has gotten so out of control. And so they presented that concern to me, and I was able, through our organization, Youth Voice Impact, which the mission statement is to cultivate young adults to care for our community while developing responsible current and future generations. Through that, we put together this youth-empowered affordable housing summit to create a platform for them to tackle this problem.
Not for you to come and tell them what to do or how to fix it. In fact, you didn't even define the problem. You let them define the problem.
Oh, yeah. You know, it was a 2-day summit, and over that period of time, they were given the challenge, a quite simple challenge for you and I, right? I don't think so.
Complex,
to define what affordable home ownership is for the next generation in 2 sentences without using any numbers or percents. And we had about 75 students there. We divided them up into teams of 5 to 7, and they operated that way throughout the 2 days. And as they listened to the speakers, and we had phenomenal speakers, enlightening them on the entire situation out there, they would go back and redefine what affordable home ownership is for them. And they came up with this definition. You might pull it up on the screen. And I'll read it to you. It says, to us, referring to the next generation, to us, housing attainability is the chance to enhance our opportunities through home ownership while not living paycheck to paycheck. It is the ability to attain and obtain a house while not sacrificing survival necessities at any income level.
Wow. Wow.
As a former, legislative individual, what do you think about that definition?
Yeah, it's incredible. They didn't just come up with that. They go back and change the words and move the words. As you're saying, it says obtain and attain in there.
Yeah, I was fascinated when they joined those 2 words together. So I went back to the dictionary, and let me read to you the definition for attain. It is a verb, and it says to succeed in achieving something that one desires and has worked for. And I think that's really important. Our kids aren't wanting anything for free, but they want the same opportunity that we had, that when we were younger, if you worked hard, you could qualify to move into a home. That's no longer the case. Yeah. And then they follow up with that second word, obtain, another verb, get acquired or secure something.
Wow.
Yeah.
Pretty heavy. Now, was there hope there? Was there no hope?
Well, that's the exciting thing. It's one thing to put together a definition and to set a goal. And sometimes what we do is we look at those definitions and goals, and it might become a gripe. Well, that's not what these youth did. they also looked at a completely new idea on how to achieve that goal by just kind of tweaking our current system by 1/4 of a turn. Are you interested in hearing that?
I'm on the edge of my seat here, George. Yes.
Well, I'm on the edge
Well,
to
what we
tell you.
talked about, by the way, is, and maybe this was your objective. We all see things a certain way. You and I were kind of the same age, and we see things the way they've always been. And you wanted fresh eyes who weren't already told the answers for years and years and years to maybe take a different approach.
Oh yes. These college students, they're brilliant and they think outside of the box.
Yeah.
We get caught in that box and we will only look to the horizon. They actually look beyond the horizon. And as they were sharing with me their concerns and their thoughts, it is nice to have maybe a mentor that has a few more years on it to help facilitate their ideas along. And I just kind of brought it all together and brought it into focus for them. And we started to look at a new idea called the, let me turn my notes here, the short-term home purchase development for college students. And so what I did, I took all that data and I broke it down into 3 categories. And these would be obstacles that our youth are facing and also a lot of the nation's facing. And the 3 categories are education, economy or economic, and then societal. And I broke those down into 2 sections themselves. Underneath the education, the lack of education to be able to get into a job that's sufficient enough to pay for the payments on the home. Then you also have the lack of education of the entire understanding of the home ownership process, the responsibilities of that.
Right.
Then economically, college students or those that are training to go into a field, they run into a couple problems there. Lack of savings and a student loan debt.
Two hits there. They got to come up with a down payment, but they're already making a payment on something else.
Yeah, they're already making a payment on something else. And then you have 2 societal, out of control inflation, and then we have a tendency of focusing our attention upon the homeless needs and moving people more attention into rentalship rather than home ownership. And I thought it was kind of interesting. Jim Costa was one of the keynote speakers.
Our Congressman Jim Costa.
Congressman Jim Costa. I apologize, Congressman. But he had mentioned that the middle class is shrinking.
Yeah.
And as a result, it's creating a cascading effect of problems. And so we need to shore that up. And he said he had talked with the chancellor of the university system, and they're struggling with college housing with that. So the idea is building of short-term home purchase developments for college students. And kind of what this looks like is you take a piece of property that's operated underneath a land trust, and you build 10, 20, 15, 50, 100 homes. It could also be used on infill. And then you place tiny home-type structures on those. And the student actually would have to qualify to move into that, and we'll move into that qualification a little later on. But they would pay $2,500 to move into the development. We don't want to give them something for free.
Right.
There's no value to that. And then let's say they pay $1,000 a month. And by the way, these figures I'm just throwing out as explanation. But from that $1,000 a month, $250 would go to the land trust, $250 would go to the interest, the loans, whatever, and $500 would become home equity savings.
Wow.
So
Huh.
if one does the math, if a person is at Fresno State for 4 years, they will generate $24,000 in home equity. What an incentive
There's the
to
down
go
payment.
to college. There's the down payment.
They're going to pay anyway for housing, but this way they're actually buying equity.
They're buying equity.
I'll be darned.
And so they would be required at the end of the 4 years to sell the home. At Fresno State, the average term there is 5 years. So
Yeah.
that 24 would turn into 30.
Yeah.
And that is a chunk to succeed in life.
Yep. That would be a big chunk. Nowadays, they rent an apartment. At the end, there's nothing. They have nothing in their hand. They just paid for that apartment every month.
Uh-huh.
And this model you're talking about, they're actually invested in themselves.
Yes, and if you and it's doable.
Mhm.
It is quite doable. It makes sense.
Now, these aren't big, grand houses you got pictured. These are these small houses.
Yeah, these are small houses, and they would probably be built out of some environmental friendly and energy efficient, like an ICF, insulated concrete form type, that could stand the abuse.
And the abuse of
Stand the abuse.
college age
But
students.
here's something else. Now that we got this definition out, and we have this idea out, now comes some more fun stuff. The youth themselves will engage them into looking at how to develop the concept. What are the rules of behavior? Who would qualify for this? Here I am, and some people would look at me and go, "Oh, here you are, an old white guy, wanting control." And no, let me stand back away from that and let our youth that represent the various demographics of our community, let's put together some more sessions for them to develop who qualifies for that.
Yeah.
And then also the rules of behavior, because I'm thinking, here, they're investing in a home, and they probably don't want the neighborhood to be disrespected.
Yep. I like the rules of behavior that they develop. They're going to have to live in this community, but I could see the qualifying, and I don't want to put my ideas in, but it would be probably way easier to qualify than when you have to buy a real house to raise your family. Part of the qualifying might be that you're going to school and that you have a certain amount of income and could sustain the payments. And
Yeah, or the other thing might be is that these individuals are representative of a impoverished community, to where the city that they come from may elect one or two, and they will apply for them, and they will place them into that housing community. And at the end of graduation, they come back to their. The other thing is that this rolls over every 4 years.
4 or 5 years.
4 or 5 years. So,
It's always trying. This is just so exciting to get my head into it. So,
well, you've been in the political field. How do you get this off the ground?
yeah. You asked me that, out in our lobby there where I was thinking about it, I said, start with the mayor, some legislators. But I really believe that a college president or a college chancellor has to get into this, believe in it. I know around Fresno State where they built those new Maya Cinema and stuff, somehow there was a bunch of land, they built a bunch of apartments, housing for students that students are paying for, but if something like that could have been set aside for a project like you're describing,
Yeah,
I think it should start at the college.
and I think if this becomes large enough, it also does. It has some benefits off to the side. It controls rent, rent control. You could also take this idea and move it over to military bases,
Absolutely,
to
yeah.
where there's limited military bases, and our military men could create a savings when they move out. You could also do it for businesses. Here in Fresno, we have a hard time paying the wage to draw people, but a couple of large businesses could put together the nonprofit themselves and
Yeah, I think we see these giant Amazon centers being built here in Fresno. You got another one where Sunnyside Drive-In was. All those people are going to have housing.
yeah. And it's temporary. This isn't the fix. There is no one fix, but a lot of good ideas can make a difference.
Let me ask you, George. These are great ideas. Where does it go from now? From here, I know the whole idea is for it to be from the students, from the young people, developing the ideas. But where does it go from here?
Well, that's a good question. Well, we as Youth Voice Impact, we have limited funds. We would love to, somebody would say, hey, would you take this to the next level? And that next level would be put together these think tank sessions.
Just kind of like what you did.
Yeah, we'll look at, they would be broken down into the development aspect, which is more the facilities, but also the rules of behavior, which would do the qualifications and things.
Yeah.
So I think that would be the next step, and we're in the process of working on that. We do need to come up with some funds.
Funds, yeah. There are foundations out there, and the colleges themselves have money for housing, and there's money out there. And I think if you could get one thing like this jump started in one place, Fresno, hopefully, that you're right. Then other colleges around the state and around the country would look at it. Industries, military would look at this concept. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, and I'm glad you took it to that size. When you care about people, you care about the masses. This has the potential of impacting not just Fresno, but other cities up and down the valley, throughout the state and nation.
And it's not just Fresno. We see Fresno, but all across the country they're having similar issues where the starters are just having trouble getting started in housing.
Yeah.
And I don't just mean buying. I mean just even getting an affordable place to live.
Yeah.
So.
And so, part of the qualifications is that we want them to succeed. And so some of the rules would be have some financial training in here. You can't take a loan out against your house because that's not what it's designed for. Right. We want success. And then if you look at something else, they would have been homeowner purchasers previous to their next house. This might save them 1%, half a percent or 2 on that next loan, and that is huge when you move from something that might be $60,000 up to, $360,000.
Well, most college students don't have credit because they haven't had time to establish it yet. Now here they have 5 years of proof credit that they could actually make a mortgage payment. So when you go to buy the next one, it's going to be much easier.
And this also provides them with something that they'll work towards in preparation for that. They may have to begin in high school because if we're saying, hey, you got to come up with some funds, there's some responsibility.
Yeah, well, that's important.
Yeah.
We're way past time, George. We can talk about this all day. It's fascinating, for one. I'm anxious to see where it goes, what the next step is, and I know you got some bright minds working on what that next step will be. And
Why, thank you. And I apologize that I went over time. I hope it was engaging and this kind of new stuff that we look at. And that was one of a couple of comments. Man, why hasn't anybody thought of this before?
Right.
I don't know.
well, us older people think we know everything about everything. And what you did is just say, nope, we're going to step back and let the next generation think about things they're going to face and how they're going to solve them. I thought that's a great way to do it. I was anxious to see how it worked out. I said, I don't know, George, you're really going to do it that way? And you did, and it worked out really, really well. So,
yeah, it from our standpoint, this was a success. Yeah. It created critical thinking, and it established that, hey, that definition in and of itself just shows the depth of their concern and their thought.
in fact, we have to go, but I think we'll close with just leave that definition up on the screen for a few minutes, and George's contact information. You can go to that website and check it out. What is it? YVI?
Inc. Yeah, YVIINC.org. or give me a phone call at that 287-9842 number. And
All right. We'll be back with more Central Valley Talk and good ideas right after this.